Hi everyone, I hope you've had a good week, and there have been some things in your week amongst the stresses of homeschooling and parenting and not being able to do what you would normally do, that there have been some moments of joy and laughter. This week, as you know, is Children's Mental Health Week, so it seems even more pertinent to be making this video today, so thank you for listening. Hopefully those of you who've watched the news or listened to the radio this week will have seen that a Children's Mental Health Ambassador has been appointed by the government, Dr. Alex George, who I've had the pleasure of meeting. He works in A&E in Lewisham Hospital, so he's quite local. He lost his brother very sadly to suicide last summer. His brother was waiting for A-level results and also hoping to be a doctor himself. Alex was always passionate about young people's mental health, but now is on a mission to help young people within the communities, and he's working with a lot of charities to reduce the stigma and discrimination that still surrounds mental health and often stops people accessing support. Now, last week we looked at anxiety, the symptoms and how it can present and what causes it. So I want to look at anxiety a little bit more this week, and how our mind works and what happens when we're anxious and why that anxiety is created. Very sadly, we are our own worst critic. It's our inner voice that criticises us and questions us and bullies us that raises the anxiety. I want to talk to you today about how our mind is working when that anxiety comes upon us. So the brain and the mind are two very, very different things. Your brain is obviously tells you when to breathe, it tells your legs to move, it allows you to walk, it allows us to see, it allows us to hear, it tells our heart to beat. Your mind is very, very different. Your mind is a bit like the M25. It is full of traffic all day, messages running around, things you need to do, lists that are in your head. But like the M25, if you get a slight snarl up or a breakdown, everything will stop. We become confused, we can't work properly, we become unproductive. That is caused by anxiety. Now, if you think of your mind as being in three parts, so you have got your chimp here, your human is here, and your computer is down the middle. So how it works is your computer is all your learned knowledge from a very young age, from the time you learned to walk, to talk, to chew, to swallow and swallow solids, all those things you've learned, things in maths lessons, things in your job, it is all stored there. The chimp part of our brain is based on our irrational. The human part of our brain is based on rational. So the chimp, unfortunately, in all of us is 15 times stronger than the human. That will always be the louder voice. That will be the one that will want to be in charge and take control when you come across situations and events. That is the one that will want you to make the decisions. But those decisions are obviously not the best decisions to make, because it's allowing our irrational to take control. So for an example, outside school where I work and spend most of my days, we have got a dual carriageway, and I always need to be in the left-hand lane to come into school. Now, if I was in the right-hand lane, traffic's busy, and then I'm trying to get over to the lane or someone's trying to cut me up, then my irrational will say, how dare that person do that? Beep your horn, flip him the bird, swear at him, go on, shout at him, tell him what a knob he's being. Well, that is not how we should behave, but if my irrational is in charge, that is how I will behave. And the result of that is my anxiety levels go up, I'm shouting at this person I've never met, that person in the other car then gets upset as well and starts beeping his horn, he drives his way, I come into school, but then I will sit there for several hours, agitated and anxious, saying, I wish I'd done that, I should have done that, why didn't I say that? That's my chimp being in control. But my human, if I allow my human to be in control, what my human will say to me, drawing from my computer, is, look, everyone's in a rush, we've all got places to be, you just wave to them and say, don't worry about it. I'd come into work and I wouldn't give it another thought. My anxiety levels stay down, I've let my human take control. I've fed my chimp a banana and I've quietened it. But it is not easy to keep that chimp quiet. As I said, we are our own harshest critics. We are our own competition. What you have to do is brain train and learn to quieten that chimp and feed it bananas so your human is always in control. As I said to you last week, adolescent development, their brain is not fully developed. They're irrational and chimp is totally out of control. They have not got that top-down thinking that we have. And that is often why young people have high anxiety levels and make irrational decisions because their chimp is in charge rather than their human. And to be honest with you, a lot of adults, their chimps are very much in control. Their anxiety levels are very high. But we can do mind management and brain training, which sounds very complicated, but it's actually really not, where we keep the chimp quiet and we do feed it bananas. And this is done by positive thinking and challenging any negative thoughts we have. So you'd say to yourself, how rather than why. So if something goes wrong on a Monday, I'll often get young people come to me saying, oh my gosh, my Monday's been so bad, the rest of the week is going to be awful. What you would be saying is, gosh, this day's been really hard, but I'm not going to let that happen tomorrow. I'm going to make a list. I'll get this done. I'll get that done. It's all about just challenging those negative thoughts. Now, there are 2 fantastic books written by a psychologist called Dr. Steve Peters that I use a lot and I recommend a lot. And it talks about the chimp paradox, mind management, and how we can keep the chimp quiet. Now, the adult book is this one. And I know it looks very businessy and complicated and complex, but it is a really, really easy read. And there are bits in there that made me laugh out loud, and you will recognise yourself and other people in them. It is a very good read and gets you into that positive mindset and how to keep your chimp quiet, which will keep your anxiety down. Now, because this book was so well received by so many, a lot of parents said it would be really good if there was something similar for children. So he has now brought a book out called My Hidden Chimp, and it is for young children. I would say approximately 7 or 8 years up, really, if they're starting to read, is good. There are lots of things in they can do. It's very easily written. There are worksheets they can do. But what this does is trains that brain from a young age. So they do it without thinking, and they draw on their human rather than their chimp. This book has got lots of activities in that as parents, grandparents, carers, you can work through with children, and that increases their emotional intelligence. So from a young age, they learn how to keep the chimp quiet. Therefore, long term, it should reduce their anxiety and stress, give them more resilience. The resilience gives them confidence to then tackle challenges and issues that come their way, hopefully without it causing them stress. Very sadly, anxiety and depression go hand in hand, and you rarely get one without the other, and they call them the terrible twins. And I have to say the majority of young people I work with at school do experience both. And the reason for that is if a young person is struggling with depression, they actually feel they're going to feel that way forever. They can't see any end to it, and they become anxious about feeling that way. And then it's the same for a young person. If it starts with anxiety, the anxiety levels are so high, they think that's going to be forever, and then they become depressed. So very sadly, you will rarely get one without the other. So we'll just look a little bit more at depression today, what it is and how it can present, and what you should be looking out for in your young people. We all have sad days, we all have blue days. It's okay not to be okay some days, but depression is a very, very different thing. That is a low, consistent mood and a loss of enjoyment and the things they've enjoyed doing for a period of 2 weeks or more. So if you were presenting to a doctor, they would be looking at that consistency of low mood for approximately 2 weeks. When a young person is depressed, it affects their schoolwork, their relationships, their life. They struggle with all aspects of normality. Nothing seems normal to them anymore. There is no single cause. It can be accumulative. So a variety of events could have happened, or it could be reactive to one specific event. People with depression will experience changes in their emotions, their thinking, their behaviour, and often in boys. For those of you that have boys in your family, they can often present a lot more aggressively than they normally would. And they actually won't know why they're behaving this way. Genuinely, they just feel awful, they feel horrible, and they don't know why. When a young person is struggling with depression, they may not realise they are struggling with depression, but they will start to feel very tired all the time. They may sleep more than they've normally slept, and even if they sleep really well, then they still wake up exhausted. Their concentration is poor, they are irritable, they can be snappy, they just don't seem themselves. They can be crying quite a lot, often privately, but you may notice that, we often know when people have been crying, their eyes are red. They can't concentrate. They are really, really struggling with schoolwork. They're lacking in all motivation, and life for them becomes a challenge. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are watching this thinking, well, that's my teenager. That is the person who grunts at me over dinner, who locks himself in his room, doesn't want to be with us anymore. But what you're looking at is a bigger picture, because yes, that is normal teenage behaviour, because as I said to you last week, it is normal when they hit puberty that they start withdrawing from their family, but withdrawing from an independent point of view, expressing their own opinions, deciding what they want to do with life, deciding who's important in their life. We discussed the frame of reference, their tribes, what makes them feel good. They're trying to find their own identity. So yes, they should be withdrawing from us. But if you feel your young person is withdrawing from the family plus everything else, so if they're starting to not enjoy the things they used to do, they're not making contact with their friends, they're not doing the sports they used to do. So you're looking at that bigger picture. If they're withdrawing and isolating from everything, then you have to start wondering if there's a mental health problem. So just remember, when a young person is struggling with depression, they may be unaware they are struggling with it, they just feel awful, but you will see changes in all aspects of their life, their emotions, their behaviour, and the way they are thinking. Now, a tool I find really, really helps me at school and helps the young person I work with is a World Health Organization video called The Black Dog, which you can download on YouTube. I've got the book here to show you. And it just describes depression and the way it makes a person feel just so well. Very simply, but also covers everything. What I often do at school is I'll get the young person to download the video, and I will either watch it with them or I'll get them to watch it on their own, and then we'll talk about it after. And it's a light bulb moment for a lot. They will actually say, oh my gosh, miss, that is me. And then what a lot of them will do then is go home, ask their parents to watch it, not with them, and then when the parents have watched it, they will then come in and say, I asked you to watch that because that describes how I'm feeling. Because often they can't articulate those feelings because, as I said to you, they just know they don't feel right, but they can't pinpoint the cause, and they just don't know what to do about it. And when a young person is struggling with depression and anxiety, for some reason, they feel very guilty and they feel a lot of blame, which again is going back to that inner chimp and their critics, blaming them for how they feel. So when you are approaching the people in your life that you love, whether it's your children, your partners, please always be empathetic and aware of they cannot help the way they are feeling. Depression is a very, very genuine illness. It isn't laziness, but it does rob us of our motivation and our want to do anything, but that's because of all the other symptoms that are going with it. Have those conversations with a young person. As I said to you last week, keep chipping away. Say to them, you just don't feel you seem yourself. So keep asking those questions, keep those connections open, so they are aware that you are noticing that they're not themselves, so they feel loved and they feel that they matter, and eventually they will open up to someone. But just remember your frame of reference. This is about them, not you. So when they do start to talk to you and tell you how they are feeling, please listen non-judgmentally. Let them tell you exactly how they're feeling. Try not to interrupt them. Try not to make them feel more guilty or blame them for feeling the way they do. They don't want you saying things to them like, oh, come on, turn that smile upside down, or what have you got to be depressed about? Because all that will do is make them feel even worse. And equally, you may have had struggles in your past and have coping mechanisms that work for you, but this is about them and not you. So if you say to them, well, when I felt like that, I tried this, all they are hearing is, oh, you're making this about you, you're not listening to me anymore. So just be very mindful of that when you approach and try and talk to your young person at home about their frame of reference and where they're coming from. Please remember as a parent that you cannot fix this for them. They've got to fix it themselves, but with love, support and help from all areas of their life. Please contact schools if you are worried about your daughter or your son or someone that you care for. Speak to heads of years, speak to subject teachers, their form tutors, find out what's available pastorally so that everyone knows what that young person is going through and can be mindful when they're marking work or if homework's late in, that they've got mental health issues that they're struggling with. But also you may find that your young person needs professional help, so contact your GP, access talking therapies with your young person to allow them to start that journey of recovery. They can't do this on their own, and very sadly untreated depression and untreated anxiety will just become bigger and bigger and will get worse and worse. It will not go away on its own. They need love, support and professional help. So please access all the services that are available for them. Having a family, when I became interested in mental health in young people, depression, anxiety and what was causing it, I know society has changed a lot. There are a lot more pressures on young people these days. But I did watch a video by a doctor called Andrew Curran, which is available on YouTube. And it's about 7 minutes long, and it looks at the development in the adolescent brain and the changes that are occurring and why 14 to 15 is often that time where young people develop mental health issues. There is a science behind it as well. It's well worth watching if you get a minute. And what Dr. Curran looks at is the effects of serotonin and the serotonin levels in that brain. Now, serotonin is our feel-good hormone that makes us feel better. And within depression, they have noticed there is a serotonin drop. So young people with low serotonin levels are more prone to depression. So there is science behind what is happening in that brain as well, and it's well worth a look if you get a chance. Thank you all for your time this week and for listening. I know many people are struggling. We're all in very difficult positions at the moment. But at the minute, I think it's all about learning to dance in the rain. But just remember, the storm always passes. Have a good week, everyone.